From undoubtedly mesmerizing battles between two mystical men, to astounding team-ups that would have likely resulted in you needing a brief lie-down post-ingestion, each of the following pieces of consistently extraordinary concept art may not have been brought to life cinematically, but at least we can appreciate it for what it is, or at the very least, what it could have been now. Yep, I know that sounded ominous, but I'm Gareth from WhatCulture.com, and here are the 10 best MCU deleted concept art scenes they never filmed. Number 10, America Chavez makes her MCU debut. Spider-Man No Way Home. If you thought the game-changing ode to all things Spider-Man was already one of the most stacked features in comic book history, then wait till you see what didn't actually make it onto our screens in Marvel Studios' most recent big screen offering, No Way Home. Coming in a moment that sees Peter Parker, MJ, Ned, Betty Brant, and Flash all looking somewhat worried about what is around the corner, none other than America Chavez herself, Xochitl Gomez, was set to make her MCU bow amid some bumper cars according to recently released concept art from artist Maciej Kuciara. With Chavez possessing the ability to travel between universes and different realities, perhaps Spidey and his pals would have originally utilized her gifts as a means to bring Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's web-slingers into the game. I would have said spoiler alert, but where the hell have you been? Though Chavez didn't manage to sneak into this already jam-packed MCU event flick, she will appear in the upcoming Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness sequel, no doubt lending her aforementioned multiverse capabilities and her super strength and ability to fly to Benedict Cumberbatch over the course of the mind-bending follow-up. Number 9, Vision takes out Iron Man, Captain America Civil War. Civil War saw the Avengers split right down the middle over the Sokovia Accords, an event that ultimately comes to a head as Team Iron Man and Team Captain America collide in an airport. However, as early concept art for the third Cap solo outing reveals, the teams we ultimately saw battling it out amongst the planes weren't always arranged in the way they eventually were in the flick itself. The most notable example of the team behind the film not being 100% certain of who would line up alongside who can be seen in a shot created by artist Andy Park that sees Tony Stark being taken down by Vision. Of course, Viz would align himself with Iron Man in the eventual game changer, but in this early design he could be spotted disabling Stark's armor via putting his hand through the suit and stopping him in his tracks. You could argue that this may have also been a reaction to Stark seemingly closing in on Wanda Maximoff, Viz's lover in the shot, turning on his boss to protect his partner. But either way, it made for a cool visual that never came to pass. Number 8, Ego's Grand Alternate Look, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. There's little debate over the fact that Kurt Russell's ego sits as one of the most despicable and unexpectedly memorable villains to have been unleashed on the MCU yet, for obvious, disturbing reasons. However, judging from art once brought forward to James Gunn and the gang in the early stages of development on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, this unsettling Celestial almost had a very different look entirely, feeling much more otherworldly and grand than the admittedly more colourful and grizzled egos seen in the finished product. The diabolical pale figure can be seen perched up high on a throne of sorts in Jared Morant's work, set against a backdrop that wouldn't look out of place in a creepy sci-fi horror feature. Adding a touch more prestige and a godly aesthetic would have likely made for a spookier introduction to Star-Lord's pops, and would have likely made for an even prettier backdrop to the pair's eventual smash-up late in the day. But it's still hard to argue with the vibrant alternative we were gifted in the end, or with added Pac-Man, waka waka waka. Number 7, Hulk Lets It Grow, Thor Ragnarok. Another character who was very nearly introduced, or reintroduced in this case, in a hugely different way to what we ultimately got, was everyone's favourite big green ball of fury in Taika Waititi's balmy Thor Ragnarok. And while the sight of Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner having undergone a cheeky trim off screen before making his pulsating return to action in the Gladiator pit, more on that soon, was cool enough, another look very nearly stole the whole damn show, as artist Ryan Maynarding spitballed numerous different potential hairstyles for the Hulk to rock in this third Thor solo flick, along with shots of Hulk sporting a shorter buzz cut and a bit of facial fuzz. A rather magnificent creation was brought into being, a Hulk with wavy long black locks and a beard so glorious that God of Thunder himself would have likely been a bit jealous. Of course, we weren't given the treat of Jesus Hulk arriving on the scene in the eventual romp that landed on screens in 2017, but you can literally hear the quips at the expense of both Avengers' new hairstyles now. File this one under missed opportunity. Number 6, a much more traditional Gladiator smash, Thor Ragnarok. Speaking of which, here's that moment Big Green and a freshly trimmed God of Thunder eventually rekindled their bumpy friendship under the bright lights of the Grandmaster's fighting pit. However, this now legendary collision between the two friends from work appeared to go through a few changes in the time between its conception and eventual execution. First of all, in the art once again crafted by Ryan Maynarding, it's clear the early idea was to have this skirmish take place in the day instead of night. Both Thor and Hulk's attires are significantly different too, with Thor possessing a look that would make Maximus Decimus Meridius proud, and both Avengers rocking notably different hairstyles. On top of this, the sight of a dead alien in the background suggests the two could have likely teamed up to take down some other foes in the hilarious exchange, before Thor attempted to get his old pal on side with the sun's getting real low shtick. Number 5, Tony Stark unleashes a bullet, Iron Man 3. In a film which feels as though it throws just about every Tony Stark Iron idea at the wall and sees which supersuits will stick, it may come as a surprise to hear that there was actually a rather stunning design which didn't actually make the grade for Iron Man 3 and its eventual climactic extremis punch-up. The suit in question, designed and illustrated by artist Josh Nizzi, would have been known as the Bullet Armor. No surprises for guessing what its primary purpose was then, but even so, the look itself is about as eye-catching as anything we've seen tumble out of Stark's mind in the MCU to date. And seeing that collide with whatever being the Avenger had his sights on would have led to winces just through the thought of it getting wrecked alone. It's just too pretty! Iron Man was undoubtedly very busy during his time off from avenging in the lead up to his third solo outing, but it's still a damn shame the Iron Legion didn't possess a bullet-shaped exclamation point to sign off Robert Downey Jr.'s trilogy. Number 4, Mega Ultron closes in on the Avengers, Avengers Age of Ultron. Another alternate version of the Avengers' biggest challenge to date, coming into their second flick as a team, may have already dominated headlines in recent months, that being What If's Infinity Stone wielding Ultron. But before that animated rejigging of the character, came another unexpected twist on James Spader's robotic big bad, before Age of Ultron had even been committed to film. In what would become the epic and impactful climax of this second ensemble team-up of Earth's mightiest heroes, initial concept art saw Phil Saunders create a version of the robo-baddie that would have melted minds instantly. Evolving into a multi-armed absolute titan of a machine, Ultron could be seen swatting away Iron Man and Hulk as the unit looked a little lost for ideas as to how to overcome this monstrous entity, along with likely being a touch complicated and expensive to effectively pull off. The question of how the gang would have been able to overcome such a colossus was likely a headache Marvel Studios just weren't in the mood to entertain when all was said and done. Number 3, Scarlet Witch takes full control, Avengers Age of Ultron. Sticking with the Avengers' second coming together on the big screen, many were left wondering why one of arguably Marvel's most powerful heroes wasn't given the chance to really show off her capabilities in what would act as her MCU bow. Well, as seen in a Paolo Giandoso design for Joss Whedon's second Avenger flick, there was actually a time when Wanda Maximoff's insanely powerful abilities were actually on the verge of being unleashed throughout the runtime of Age of Ultron. Showcasing her ability to control minds in the eventual finished flick, this concept art takes that notion and dials it up and then some. The Scarlet Witch controls a full room of henchmen, as her visually stunning powers take hold of all around her. Of course, Marvel Studios appear to have an endgame in mind for Wanda, involving her realizing her true potential later down the road. But I'd be lying if I said Elizabeth Olsen's chaos magic wielding badass controlling multiple minds with ease wouldn't have made for a seriously awesome sequence. Number 2, Thor and Rocket fight giant serpents, Avengers Infinity War. For a film that comes in at a whopping 149 minutes and boasts just about every MCU face available to the Russo brothers, it's hard to believe that absolutely anything was left out of the event that was Infinity War. But as seen in art released after the flick arrived in cinemas, two of the film's central figures very nearly embarked on an entirely different quest altogether. One involving another new face to the MCU. Yes, another. Instead of heading to Nidavellir to forge Stormbreaker with a little assistance from Eitri, it appears the God of Thunder would have brought his new raccoon friend on board to seek out the potentially already made weapon. After finding the badass new weaponry, it then looks as though the two allies crossed the path of Jormungand, the Midgard serpent, and had to see off the titanic beast in order to escape Nidavellir. As explained by writer Stephen McFeely though, this scene must provide a test for Thor, but it also shows what Thanos has wrought. And in having Thor and Rocket take such a disconnected detour, it likely made the entire fight sequence feel a touch pointless when trying to lace it into the central narrative as a whole. Still would have looked pretty cool though, right? Number 1, Doctor Strange and Mysterio collide. Spider-Man No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home certainly wasn't lacking in the Rogues Gallery department. But even with that most definitely being the case, That still didn't stop the team behind the Spidey Mega Mash from dreaming up a scenario that would have seen yet another Peter Parker adversary seemingly return from the dead. In Andrew Reeder's concept art revolving around what looks like the feature's epic final battle between the trio of Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and Parker's many enemies from multiple universes, it looks as though there was a time when Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio, aka Quentin Beck, was set to join the buddies in trying to take down Strange and Spidey, and all the other Spideys. With both mystical men powering up attacks on one another whilst hovering over Lady Liberty herself, it's not clear whether this would have been the Beck we've already seen in the MCU, or perhaps a Mysterio from another universe who does actually possess the powers that were merely digital illusions in Far From Home. Either way, it would have made for an admittedly gripping showdown, but one that would have likely bloated an already crammed feature past the point of enjoyment. So John Watts was likely wise to leave this idea on the page. And that's our list of any other awesome concept art scenes that they never filmed in the MCU. Let us know all about them in the comment section right down below, and do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're at it. Also, be sure to head on over to whatculture.com and find more incredible articles just like the one this video you're watching right now is based on. I've been Gareth from whatculture.com. Thank you as always for clicking on this lovely video today, and I'm sure I'll see you very, very soon. Bye bye!